Hey, and welcome back, everybody, to BackTrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and life is good, but it can be better. And I'm joined on this episode by my co-host.
Hey, I'm Gooey, and the truth is all that's real, and the truth is all that matters.
Apparently that is true.
The truth
yes.
is
yes,
the truth.
The truth. No short paths. And we have returned to explore the inspirations behind your favorite episodes of Star Trek. And today we are going to do literally that, to talk about a story that inspired not only the DS9 episode Rivals, but also one of the most successful films of 2020 and the latest entry into the DC film franchise, Wonder Woman 1984.
This was I watched them both back to back. It was quite an experience.
Well, we'll get the freshest response then on how well these two jive with each other. But welcome back. It's good to be back here in 2021.
Yeah, 2020 was hell year, right? And now we're here. Everything's great.
AKA 2020 Part 2. Yeah. I was thinking about it in terms of Star Trek. It's like the NCC 2020-A is what 2021 is going to be.
We're getting pretty close to past tense, right? Yeah, we're creeping up to that. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, that is 2024. They don't mention a presidential election that year because they're focused on other things, but there would have been one. And so God knows what the next 4 years will bring, but hopefully not sanctuary districts, in San Francisco and other cities around the world. I'd be a gimme. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, same. We're a bunch of gimmies here podcasting.
Yeah, but you can't, people aren't going to give things to you. You can't take the short path. You know, the truth is all you've got. You got to hang on to that.
If I could just have one wish, everything would be good.
Yeah. And I don't want to renounce it. I'm not going to do that. Well, when we talk about Star Trek on this show, we often try to talk about the news that's related to Star Trek. And there isn't really any news. I guess the big news is that there is no news because, of course, Discovery has just wrapped up its third season after going for 13 straight weeks. And then, of course, Lower Decks for 10 weeks before that. And there is a lot in the works in the Trek machine. But partially because of COVID and partially because Star Trek on CBS is charting a lot of new directions, everything's just in development. So there's nothing really announced so far this year.
Right. They like barely got Discovery out, right? Like they had to do the music in a weird way, right? So
yeah, I think there was a lot of performers recording at home, and of course it was all mixed, and a lot of the effects and sound effects were done in designers' homes. So it's rough, and I know that it's funny because the one thing that you're not limited in as far as TV production goes is getting it to the viewer. You know, we can all see it on CBS All Access in our homes. And of course, movies are pulling their hair out about whether they're going to release their major releases in the theater or just sort of give up and make them available at home. And so TV has that on its side, but that doesn't mean that TV production can be done easily. And I think that has been a struggle for CBS and for Star Trek. Although, you know, now that we know that this is a consideration, I think they just need to just get ahead of that and think about that, because unless they drop something, and they've been able to turn Discovery around fast in the past, but unless they drop some dates soon, we could be looking at a Star Trek free 2021.
Maybe it'd be a good palate cleanser, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly worked okay for the Marvel universe and their films. And I was reading an article or an interview with Kevin Feige the other day, and he talked about how there was going to be releases, obviously, last year, but not a lot. And it was going to be kind of a palate cleanser and a reset for the MCU after the events of Avengers Endgame. And he was talking about how they kind of lucked out because they had planned on Black Widow being kind of the transition between their Phase 3 and their Phase 4. And of course, they had to push that back. But now they've got this new show, WandaVision, which comes out at the end of this week on Friday when we're recording this. And he says that works well too. Like that was also designed to be a transitional thing. So they're just going to swap them and, knock on wood, Black Widow will come out this summer. And so they're still set up to be ready to sort of bring the ruckus back, bring the new phase of Marvel shows and movies back to you.
Yeah. And so, maybe everything maybe could get a little bit extra time to cook conceptually, maybe that could be good.
Yeah. Also, all of these writers are all tasked to other CBS shows, as far as I understand, because, not only is Alex Kurtzman and his company Secret Hideout, working to produce a lot of Star Trek shows, but they've got their Silence of the Lambs show, and they've got some other stuff, probably. But they're working on a lot of things.
Let's get more Sheldon out there.
Get the more young Sheldon out there. He's not going to be young Sheldon for long. He's going to be teenage Sheldon.
We need old
soon.
Sheldon. Old man Sheldon.
Wait, just go.
The gritty.
The young Sheldon adventures. Yeah. Old Sheldon's got an eye patch and he tells some kids some stories about when he had a bow tie. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about it because I was kind of joking on our show where we cover CBS Trek Discoverage. I was joking about having to go through 23 weeks of Trek nonstop, something that even, back in the old days of TNG or even TOS, they never did. But in a lot of ways, it might have saved me because, we had nothing going on. You think about the way that we were watching our country just implode and self-destruct in the fall of 2020. Star Trek was always there, and that was great. Now it's going to take a breather, but I don't get a breather. I got to live through 2021. So I hope there's something.
Well, I guess you'll have your main show, but maybe you need another a different hobby.
Oh, other than podcasting?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know what would that even be. I don't even have time to play video games.
Yeah. Well, we're back, and we're gonna be having what's half of 52? We're basically doing many weeks of Star Trek here.
6, I think.
Get ready to rewatch some Star Trek.
Yeah, we're gonna rewatch some Star Trek, and we have quite the year planned for BackTrekking. Like you said, going every other week. We've got nominally 26 shows, and a lot of good things, a lot of kind of departures from our formula, but also sticking to our formula of looking at pieces of media or real world events that inspired Trek TV shows, Trek films. And we are going all over the shop and covering every broadcast series and even looking into a couple movies as well.
Yeah, the way we got it all laid out, I'm really excited about it.
I feel really good, except for the films that are supposed to come out this year, which we may or may not get a chance to see.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe we'll have to do an audible on those. But yeah, otherwise, looking forward to an exciting year of BackTrekking and also maybe finding time to play some video games. There is a video game that I'm going to force myself to play. I got that Ring Fit Adventure for the Switch.
Oh, okay.
Which I heard, it stands out amongst all other mere mortal fitness apps in the past, like the Wii U Yoga or whatever. But this is a thing that allows you to work out with the Switch, and then it's cool because it's got a role-playing game sort of design to it. So, you are like a character in your own role-playing game, and they give you quests and adventures, and they all involve activity and exercise.
Yeah, I've heard some positive words about it from people, and I'm sure that's probably good right now, especially when you can't really get out and do stuff. It's both COVID and winter and stuff. So yeah, good way to stay active.
So I pity my downstairs neighbors. I'll do what I can to mitigate the pounding of my oversized feet, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
I need to get in shape.
Well, it's as I get older, it becomes more and more important, I think, to keep an eye on that. Gone are the halcyon days where I could just, eat an entire plate of nachos. And I don't know where it goes. Where does it go? I don't even know.
You could sit or lay any way you want and not worry about hurting your back from sitting weird.
Yeah, no, I have to be very careful about that.
Which I've been dealing with for a couple days now.
Really?
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
Do you have a good chair?
No.
I have a terrible chair.
Do I need to get a sick gamer chair? Would that be cool?
I've always laughed at gamer chairs, but I've heard other professional broadcasters and people who stream or do podcasts, and they say that get a good chair. I mean, it costs money, but you are going to spend that money in new crappy chairs that you buy to replace your old chair. And I've already experienced that. So yeah, I'm going to start. I don't even know how to start, but I'm going to start looking for a good chair.
On the chair hunt.
That's got a razor chair that's got LEDs that cycle colors and yeah.
Oh yeah, you got to trick it out.
Let's get into our featured subject for this week's episode. Star Trek, like many brands of fiction and media, often draws inspiration from earlier works, be they classic literature or film or myths and legend. And short fiction as well is often the source of story ideas, not just for Star Trek, but all modern genre fiction as well. And short fiction, especially genre fiction, employs a quick attack, an intriguing premise, and a brisk resolution, all in service of a generally didactic moral or lesson. And the myths and fairy tales of earlier days have now given way to the biting homily and satire of The Twilight Zone and Black Mirror, for example, for our modern fairy tales. And one dark fable of being careful what you wish for, The Monkey's Paw, has provided inspiration for countless works of genre fiction, including, improbably, the 2020 film Wonder Woman 1984.
This world is not yet ready for all that you will do. Your time will come, Diana. And everything will be different.
Citizens of the world, I'm here to change your life. Anything you want, anything you dream of, you can have it. You look like you saw a ghost. Diana, look at you. It's like not one day has passed.
I don't want to be like anyone. I want to be an apex predator.
You've always had everything, while people like me have had nothing. Well, now it's my turn. Get used to it.
I've never been one for rules. The answer is always more. The way I fly, they will never find us.
I forgot to tell you.
What?
Radar.
Will they shoot at us?
Barbara, what did you do?
I'm not so keen on this one. I figure you are, but you know what? I'm ready to go.
I think we can do better.
Parachute pants?
Yeah,
Does everybody parachute now?
Yeah, The Monkey's Paw. This film is A Monkey's Paw.
It is. Yeah, making the bargain of seeing it is kind of a monkey's paw. And we're doing this a little backwards how we usually do it, because obviously, Wonder Woman 1984 was not inspired by DS9's Rivals, but both of these stories were inspired by the short story The Monkey's Paw, which I know that I read it in high school, like in a short fiction unit, but is a lot younger than you'd think. It only came from 1902. It was written by an author named W.W. Jacobs for a short story collection called The Lady of the Barge. And it's a fairly simple story. In it, it's a man and his wife and their son live, in rural England. And the son, it's kind of a story of the evils of industrialization, because the son works in a factory and the family is struggling to make ends meet. And the father gets this monkey paw, from a curio shop, and he's been told that it was blessed by a fakir, or some kind of, ignorant of Eastern cultures thing. And he's told that, if he wishes on it, his wishes will come true. So he wishes for more money for the family. And the next day, somebody knocks on his door, and it's an insurance guy from the company saying that the factory that his son works at had an accident, and his son was chewed up in the machinery and is dead. But here's 200 pounds for your troubles. And so their financial problems are essentially solved at that point. And as the story goes on, he feels, sort of darkly frightened of the situation. But his wife is missing their son terribly, and they've just buried him. So she convinces the husband to wish on the monkey's paw that their son will return. And he does. And the story is, it's really a great little lesson in tight storytelling and thrilling, scary storytelling, because it's a dark and stormy night, and they both don't see an immediate reaction to the wish, but they're filled with dread. And there is a knocking, an ominous knocking on the door. And the story does a great job of following the husband's point of view, and he's imagining, I've wished him back to life, but is he, is this unlife? What? He was mangled. He was destroyed by this machine. It was a closed casket funeral. Like, what has returned? And as the wife is struggling to get the door open to let whatever this is in, the husband finally grabs the monkey's paw and makes his third wish, that his son would be put to rest. And when she opens the door, nothing's there, and they are relieved.
So scary.
Yeah, and I'm sure The Outer Limits or Twilight Zone, somebody I'm sure has dramatized this for television. It was immediately popular in its time and was turned into a stage play. It was adapted for film, a silent film in 1915. But that idea has propagated, if not the specific setting, which is kind of unrelatable now because, we just expect to get eaten up by machines, I guess, at work. Like, we just expect we've assimilated industry into our lives. But the only place that you'll see a monkey's paw now is on The Simpsons or Rick and Morty or something like that.
Well,
But that idea has continued.
It's kind of crazy. Like, I've never actually read it, but I just am so familiar from like watching cartoons as a kid. It's just like in every cartoon.
Yeah.
And it is one of those, it's similar, not as a story, but it's similar to like how we were talking about A Christmas Carol, in that it's just so simple and straightforward and it's so easily adaptable that it's probably been done a million times by other people.
And it's been done for some reason recently with the 2020 film Wonder Woman 1984, our second Kristen Wiig film, I think.
Oh, is it? What else did we do?
We talked about Mitty.
Oh my goodness. I forgot she was in that, but of course she was.
Yeah, she's the romantic
I forgot
object
everything
of affection
about that movie.
I tried to as well, yeah. But no, she was in Walter Mitty, and she's in this as well. And she's somebody who I respect and I think is really talented, but I don't know. Hollywood is weird, and sometimes it's hard to find your niche. And she's certainly been in some successful, funny comedies, but I often find that when I see Kristen Wiig's name on the marquee, I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure if this is gonna land, this film. And I think that's kind of true of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I feel like too. There's like in this, she's kind of called upon to do a lot of what you've kind of seen her done before. It's not really like her stretching her wings there a little bit with her acting,
Yeah, and it's weird because she's asked to do two different things, which is to play a character who is sort of nerdy and reserved, which I think is, we've seen before comedically from her, but then also a character that is vengeful and kind of more powerful and strong, which we don't normally see from her. And I think she does well. The first one she can do in her sleep. I think that she takes on the second one well, but I think her character is so underserved in the story. I think Cheetah is kind of an afterthought in a lot of the film.
Right.
That she just doesn't get the focus I think that she deserves. If people aren't, this is a fairly recent film, and we're going to talk about the whole thing. So if people haven't seen Wonder Woman, see it first and come back. But the basic gist of the film is that Wonder Woman, who we, of course, were introduced to in the first Wonder Woman in the years of the First World War, is now living her life in America in the mid-'80s, 1984, of course. She works for the Smithsonian using her knowledge of antiquities to do that job. And she's lonely because her friend and her only love Steve Trevor died at the end of Wonder Woman the first, and she's never really gotten over that, and she lives a kind of lonely, wistful existence, unsure of how to be fulfilled personally. But in the meantime, she is doing super heroics around DC, and she is saving lives, she's saving the common folk, and yet trying to keep her persona hidden, not ready to join the world at large. And boy, I just realized it's going to get real complicated, so I'll try to make it as simple as possible because this film is extremely complicated.
It
but
is, yeah.
She works with a woman named Barbara Minerva, Dr. Barbara Minerva, Kristen Wiig's character, at the Smithsonian. They come into possession of a stone, which appears to be not valuable. I was going to say invaluable, but that means valuable. Not valuable, but it turns out that it's a very special stone that can grant wishes, the wishes of anybody that desires, much like a monkey's paw. And the businessman and con man, we learn, Maxwell Lord, is seeking possession of this because he wants to use it not only to improve his failing oil business, but also to get everything that he wants from the world. Life is good, but it can be better. And so he gets his hands on the stone, but not before Barbara wishes to be more like Diana, and Diana herself wishes for Steve Trevor back. And she gets that, but in a way that is very reminiscent of a monkey's paw, wish, not getting exactly what it is that you want. And so as Barbara gains more confidence and learns that she has powers like Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman herself loses her powers, Wonder Woman joins with Steve to go on a globe-spanning adventure to stop Maxwell Lord from getting what he wants, which will cause the destruction of the world.
That was a great recap.
So that wasn't that tough. Yeah,
No.
that was okay. But it takes 2 hours and 32 minutes to do all that.
The story actually isn't. It is almost as simple conceptually as the monkey's paw, but just like it takes so long. Like no one is in a rush in this movie. That was my main thing looking throughout all of this movie is, how are you in this body? I don't know. Let's go to the museum and like try on clothes or.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we got to get to Cairo. But like, okay, let's fly through some fireworks and have some fun here. It's like, no, just come on, let's go.
You guys got to do this. The world is going to end. Yeah, I know.
They're just like having an extended date throughout the whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It must be, I mean, the first movie was 2 hours. 2 hours is pretty much, the target, I think, for superhero films these days, unless they're, saga-ending films like the last couple Marvel films. But I wonder why this is 2.5 hours long. I know that Patty Jenkins, a skilled director, won a lot of cachet, won a lot of laud for her first film, and so clearly, they're going to let her kind of do what she wants. But I wonder why she thought, 2.5 hours is the way to go.
Especially after it's like delayed, and people are going to be like really watching it at home. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, unless it's like, I don't know, not a superhero movie. Like if I'm sitting down to watch a movie at home, like I get distracted, all this stuff. Like I don't really want to watch a long movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I suppose, I mean, people are binging things, but that's more series, and maybe having to stick with one narrative for 3 hours is a long time.
Yeah, well, I don't watch a lot of like TV shows that like other than Star Trek, but when
neither does Diana. She doesn't have a TV.
She doesn't have a TV. I'm not trying to
the worst.
I hated that. No, I watch a lot of Star Trek, so I can't say I don't watch TV, but a lot of people I talk to, and I'm like, about movies and stuff, most people are like, oh, it's just so much easier. Like, it's less of a commitment to watch a TV show, but then I'll watch like 4 episodes in a row. So I guess I basically watch a movie. So I don't know. I think people at home are more prone to probably watch some shorter stuff because I think they view a long movie as a commitment, as opposed to going to a theater. It's going to be like a night out. Like you're there, you're not distracted. Maybe some people are talking or looking at their phone, but you aren't usually. I think the average person, So like something like that can hold people's attention.
Yeah, unless somebody is just literally having a conversation the entire time. I never get that bothered by, people being distracting in a theater. I will admit, though, I know that like children, teenagers, young people, let's say, young people of today, grew up with a phone in their hand, essentially. Like it is just an extension of them. But like, I do see that when I go to films, because I go to, comic book films, and there's an intersection between, young people and ancient me. And they are just on their phones the entire time. Yeah. And I don't know how it's like, I mean, maybe they're not film school students, but I just don't know how you can just be like texting like the entire time and also probably absorbing some of it, but definitely not absorbing the whole thing. Yeah. But this is just old man yelling at a cloud.
Yeah. I mean, there's movies I watch like that at home where it's just like, I'm going to put on a movie, but I'm really just going to be having fun online on my phone. But
oh, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I'm at home. Yeah. I do that all the time.
So I don't know why this is this long.
Yeah, I have no idea. People are talking about this film still. I mean, it came out 3 weeks ago, and I think everybody, saw it at home on HBO, or maybe they went to the theater. But yeah, people are still talking. There is still online debate, podcasts, obviously, YouTube videos, and people seem to be focusing on a couple specific things, and we can address those things here, that I think are important. And then there's a lot of things that keep coming up that I feel like are cheap shots, that people are just sort of parroting from, other podcasts or videos.
I do agree
watching.
with that. Yeah, I do agree. Like, because I've heard it all about this. Like, I don't care about spoilers, so I was just like listening to stuff, reading stuff, and going into watching the movie, I was like almost anticipating some of that stuff. And then when some things came up, I was like, oh, that's not really what everyone has made it out to be.
Yeah, I've seen it twice now, and I have to say that I think I enjoyed it more the second time I saw it. And I think that watching it a little closer answered some questions that I had. There are things that people point out are like, how does that happen? That's a plot hole. And I think the movie does explain itself. I think it's fairly well, let's be careful. I think for a lot of things, it is very consistent internally. And then there are a lot of things that really don't make any sense, and we can talk about those. Although I will say the second time I watched it, it took me 12 hours to watch it the second time because there are parts that the pacing is so strange in the film, and there are parts that are really exciting and entertaining, and then there are parts that are not. And so I would get through like a really good part and be ready to watch the next part, and it just kind of drags, and then I'd go off and do some other bit of work or have a sandwich or something and come back. And it took me like half the day to watch this film.
Yeah, this was interminable. I could not pause it because I did have to go to bed, and so I was just trying to get through it.
Just plug through it.
Yeah. There were, like I said, there were unfair criticisms, I felt like, but I did also just really hate my experience watching this movie. So,
well, I think it's funny that, like we said, it's overstuffed. It's very complicated. There are a lot of elements here. Some of them obviously meant to service future DC properties. And I wonder why it's so complicated and long when it has such, like you mentioned, a basic idea at its core. An idea that, in case you missed it, the characters in the film take the time to explain to you that this is a monkey's paw situation. And I'm not saying that.
I feel like.
Yeah. They a couple times they mention it, and I don't think that I love comic books, and I think that they have delivered some of the best storytelling of the 20th century, but they are rooted in children's entertainment, and there is a balance that comic books always have to address there. But whereas something like, it's an Ant-Man. He's a guy, he gets small, he gets big again. Whereas I think Marvel films generally have taken their source material and the child entertainment roots of their medium and have made it like fairly complicated emotional storytelling. This is such a basic idea. It's almost like comic books often try to be more complicated than they are, but this is literally just a kind of prosaic story from the 1900s.
I was watching it thinking, oh, this is like all those cartoons I watched as a kid that had the same story.
Yeah. And it really is just that, and then there's just enough stuff crammed into it to make it 2.5 hours long. And I just thought that was so strange. You could have made this such a short movie.
I think that's just been the trend. Like, I didn't really like a lot in this, but I think it's comparable with the length and everything to the Aquaman movie, which I liked a lot more because it was more consistently goofy. But even that, it was like, this isn't...
Guy doesn't want to be king. He learns it's important to be king. He becomes king.
Yeah, it does not need to be... This is like fish, mermaid, Lord of the Rings or something. Like Game of Thrones. Like, let's cut it down. Like, it's not that serious.
Yeah. Yeah, Aquaman could have been shorter, probably. But where Aquaman was presenting, like you said, this whole other world, which if you buy into it, I think you can see it as, oh, what are the crab people doing? It is like a Lord of the Rings-esque thing.
Yeah.
This is literally just set in an era that most of you and I, did we both live through this era? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, some of us have lived through... or at least we recognize from the movies that we watch from the 80s. Yeah, from shows like Stranger Things. Like, it isn't like a weird world. In fact, I think it's designed to feel comfortable and to feel like... Because the movie, we can talk about the 80s setting. Like, the movie is set in the 80s, but it doesn't take any pains to really make the 80s feel all that strange and alien, except perhaps the Barbie doll dress-up Steve... sequence.
There's a couple moments, but I thought it was weird otherwise to even make it be set then.
Yeah.
Especially because then they're having to work around this idea of like, oh, Wonder Woman hasn't revealed herself yet. Like Batman versus Superman hasn't happened. Like, just make it contemporary and then you don't have to explain that. And
which
even when they explained it, it was like she blew her cover like the whole movie. I don't understand.
Yeah. They really fucked themselves with that idea in, I guess it was introduced in Batman vs. Superman, which I don't know if you saw recently, but Zack Snyder, who himself is the Maxwell Lord, I think, of DC Films, who is destroying everything, but he released a... sort of a deleted scene, a deleted literal frame of a picture that was going to be the original picture that Bruce Wayne finds in his secret file. And it's a picture of Wonder Woman in the Crimean War, which of course was in the sort of the mid-19th century. And so if Bruce is finding this, that would mean that Diana had been working secretly for over 150 years. And of course, when they brought Patty Jenkins on to develop the Wonder Woman film, which may or may not have been greenlit at that point, she was like, no, let's move it to like World War I and bring it a little closer. But still, it puts her, 80 years out of reach. And I think it's telling for Zack Snyder that in the photo, it's the Crimean War, and it's hardcore Zack Snyder style, because Wonder Woman is like holding three severed heads by their hair. Yeah. Yeah, this is a kick-ass Wonder Woman.
At this point, I'm starting to appreciate it because of what we said earlier, where it's just like, this is ridiculous.
Nothing surprises me that he does it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm down. I'm down for all of it. Yeah. You got
to give him credit for being on brand, his brand.
I feel like at least he's not like he's taking it seriously, overly seriously, but in a way that's not like, it's not embarrassed of like comics or anything. Like, I think he thinks like comics are kick-ass and he's making a kick-ass comic movie. Oh
no, yeah, he is absolutely true to himself, like 100%. Whether that jibes with what people want from his movies, I don't know. But yeah, so it's set in the 80s, and it really is just almost an afterthought. It's setting in the 80s. How do you set a movie in the 80s and have a president who isn't Ronald Reagan?
That drives me crazy.
Clearly intended to be Ronald Reagan, and they even talk about Star Wars, not the film, of course, the missile program. And it's the only thing I can think of is that it, as a movie, which is a product, it is designed to appeal to everybody that it can. And if you make it Reagan, and I think the character is not. The character is barely a character, and he's somewhat sympathetic. At least they portray him as being very, very concerned about, the safety of America and not being like, we got to kill those commie bastards. He just wants to protect America, and he needs more missiles to do it. But to portray Reagan in a negative light would theoretically put off half of the country. at least the half of the country that would want to storm the Capitol, and so you can't do that, and so the movie has no balls, is what I'm saying. Or the female equivalent of
right.
of fortitude.
That's what I mean, like, partially what I mean when I compare it to, like, a Zack Snyder movie, too, because he's an idiot or whatever, but, like, he's not afraid.
But he's our idiot.
He is our idiot. He's not afraid, at least, I feel like, to express a point of view, whether he, like, totally, I think he totally understands it, whereas I feel like this, it's like, there isn't really a point of view or, like, any reason to, like, include, like, political things, because it's all meaningless, you know.
Well, there's a great example which fits the 80s setting, ironically, but speaks, I think, to that, when while everybody in the world is making a wish, we cut to a chip shop, presumably in London or in England, and English woman is having a fight with an Irish guy, and she says that she wishes that they're not even watching the TV. At the end of the movie, I have no idea how the wishes work anymore, but she says that she wishes that all those Irish bastards would be sent back to England, referencing, I guess, the Troubles at the time.
Right.
And then he says that he wishes that she was dead, and she drops dead. And I'm thinking, like, okay, I guess that fits into the 80s thing. Immediately, a bunch of paddy wagons show up to, I guess, literally take the paddies away. Yeah. But it's so targeted and it's so specific. I can't help but think that while writing it, somebody was like, one of the 5 writers on the movie was like, we have to have some racism here. And when you think racism, you immediately think somebody needs to be yelling at somebody black in the South and something horrible happens, right? And then everybody must have thought, whoa, we can't do that. That's too much. What's a fun, friendly white racism that's in our past, and they came up with that instead of, somebody getting a noose. That's all I can think of.
That's how I felt about all the, like, political machinations of, like, that and, like, the Middle East stuff. And I can't attest to being, like...
Oh, the Middle East stuff. Oh, my God.
And I can't say I'm, like, an expert on that stuff, but it does feel detached from what I understand about, like, the actual reality of the issue with, like, the Troubles or the stuff in Egypt. And I think it's, like, almost intentionally, where it's like it reminds you of this stuff, but we're not, like, commenting on it any deeper than, like, can't we all just get along?
It really does just seem, it's just completely tone deaf, because you've already got tension in the fact that you've got a native Israeli Wonder Woman, who served in the IDF, going to Egypt and then fighting with Egyptian, who knows what the prince's jurisdiction is or his kingdom or whatever, but, like, fighting Egyptian people, but also saving Egyptian people, little kids.
Just kids playing soccer,
That's charged. I think that's kind of charged. And then she tells them, nobody's going to keep this secret, right? She keeps asking kids to keep her secret. They can't keep a secret. So she's like, she tells the little Egyptian kids, this is our secret. The next thing they say is, Mommy, that Israeli whore saved me from the soldiers. Like, there's absolutely no way. But the film just doesn't have any awareness of that, or doesn't want to. Nope, I won't admit that I know anything about this.
I don't get that. I just don't. I don't get the secret. I don't get why there's a secret. I think if they were going to do this, they should have just, like, again, just embraced that, like, it's goofy and it doesn't make sense. Because that's kind of what they're doing with DC movies and continuity now anyway, with all the stuff they've announced. Yeah. So, like, why not just be like, actually, she's Wonder Woman, and it's fine.
Everybody just ignored that, or maybe you can make it into a sexism thing. They didn't take seriously the idea that a woman was going and stopping, like, purse snatchings and stuff like that.
No, I'm not even going to get into it. I was going to complain about, like, the costume changes in general of, like, why she even change into Wonder Woman's outfit? When does she do it and out of it? Like, but then it's like, now I'm picking apart that aspect of, like, a goofy comic book movie. Superman just got in a phone booth and changed. It's like, we don't need to explain that.
It's a symbol, and I can't really remember in the first film. I mean, it's like, it's an Amazonian suit of armor or something, right? It's like, I don't know if she doesn't need it for her powers, but yeah, she could just be like a woman in like classy shoes, like with a rope. Like, pick that person out of a lineup. Do you know what I mean? Like that.
You would probably be more secretive that way.
She keeps, putting on this red, white, and blue costume and then going, shh, I'm not here. I'm not here. It's a little weird. The bombastic nature of the film does keep coming up. And I think that's what we come to for superhero films and specifically Wonder Woman films. It's really, I think, embodied in the film's opening, which is meant to sort of set up the lesson of the film that Diana learns from this, which is that you can't cheat fate. You can't ask for more than what you've been given. There are no short paths. You can't cheat. And which I think is like, I can't remember where I heard it. It was probably something like Chapo Trap House, but like, what a shitty message for a film. Doesn't that seem like a film that is just preparing like a populace to like stop asking for government services, stop asking for your leaders to satisfy your desires, really your needs? I mean, I know that like Wonder Woman is Greek, but that's a lot of austerity.
Right. And I think there's like, again, there's probably plenty of movies, especially superhero movies, that have like stories that if you break down what like the message implies, it's like, okay, this is kind of maybe suspicious here, but you don't think about it because it's a good, fun movie. But this is like, it is just begging you to constantly consider this, like constantly, like with every character, that's their whole thing. And it's so frustrating with every character. Like there's, with Kristen Wiig, it's like, oh, you can't just wish to be great like Diana. You have to simply be born great like her.
Yeah. It's that's it. There for another show, a comic book show. There's a great like debate or argument to be made about how Marvel turned into the sort of liberal film franchise and DC became like the kind of conservative franchise, because DC is kind of like that, we need a bat. Don't question Batman's methods. He needs to see all your phones to know whether you're doing bad or not, and like Superman, you don't owe them anything, Superman's like a libertarian hero. And then Wonder Woman's like, no, sorry, you don't get to have this stuff. Sorry, you wished your cancer away. You got to take that cancer. No short paths. Sorry, no healthcare for all for you.
Though I will say, like, I feel like the plot of that last Spider-Man movie was like, who has the, like, we need one person who's responsible enough to have sunglasses that
satellites.
Can do drone strike. And it turns out it's this one guy, which is like the whole story of every Iron Man movie as well, is he's the only one that we can trust to drone strike people.
That's true. Yeah, well, at least he's, it's sort of quarantined to that film series generally, but that's, I just, the ultimate, if you look at the finale of the MCU films as maybe their thesis, it's basically a bunch of people saying, I don't care what happened. I'm not going to accept what happened. We're going to change time if we have to get the people back that should be alive and to stop the guy who wants to force us all to do what we don't want to do, But yeah, Wonder Woman is just like, nope, sorry, you don't get what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think like the movie needs to conform to my specific beliefs, but like I feel like if they're trying to get across the positive message, that's what they're trying to do. Wouldn't you like with the typical monkey's paw thing? The idea is that it's a thing they do in Star Trek all the time, where it's like, isn't there some episodes where it's like you've got this like or you've got this like perfect society or whatever, but it's not real and you didn't work for it or something like that, and that's what's important, is like the care and effort you put into it. But in this, it's like there's no implication of like you need to work for anything. It's just you need to accept the world for what it is. Yeah.
And Wonder Woman is not offering them anything. She's just offering them the truth, or her concept of the truth. I was looking back. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about the DS9 episode, but I was trying to think of other examples, and the only thing I can think of right now is maybe the movie Insurrection, in which you've got that planet with the healing rings, and the bad elements of the Federation want it because they don't like their wrinkles, I guess. They don't want to die. And then you've also got Salieri and the stretch face aliens who want to help them get it. And it turns out that the Baku have kind of earned their wisdom. They are 500 years old, but they live a simple life, and they are, but they also understand technology, and they're sort of even-handed about its use. And it turns out that the Baku are just their bratty kids who want to punish them by taking away their life. You know, they have the worst kind of motives. And so, yeah, I think that maybe there's no really monkey's paw thing there, but I think that sort of espouses what you're talking about. But yeah, this movie she offers nothing. She just literally, when she's talking to the whole world at the end, and they still don't know who Wonder Woman is, she's just saying, yeah, that's what I was disappointed when I was a young girl because I cheated at a race, and now you guys can't have anything that you want.
Yeah.
You have to live with the Irish bastards.
Meanwhile, I get to continue to be the most powerful person most people know about.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess the downside is I don't get my boyfriend. Yeah.
I love how comprehensive the wishes are too, because all that Barbara asks for is just to have Diana's beauty and poise and sense of style. She doesn't know that Diana has super strength, you know, or is a goddess or whatever, but she also gets those powers too.
I like that aspect of it, actually.
Oh, you like okay. But it would make more sense if, you know, there's a little funny moment where she like tears the door off her refrigerator because she doesn't know how strong she is. But if the specific downside of her getting those powers was that they interfered with her life in some way, and instead she just employs them to now, you know, punish the one drunk harasser in DC. This guy gets around. That's something that I didn't really like about some of the wishes, is that they set up very early on that you get your wish, but it also takes your heart's desire from you. But that that fluctuates throughout the film, and so it makes sense that like Wonder Woman gets Steve Trevor, that's her wish, but he is also the most valuable thing, and so she loses it. But that's not kind of true, because she loses her powers. So are her powers what's most valuable to her, or is it Steve Trevor? And Barbara wishes for Diana's, you know, just being like Diana. But what is it that she ends up losing? She becomes colder, she becomes more self-centered, but we don't know if that is the effect of her finally getting what she wants, you know, power corrupting her, or if what she valued most was her personability and the fact that she was a really nice person, you know, who cared about the unhoused and things like that. The movie is so soft on that. And then once Max Lord becomes the stone, that rule is gone. Like, we don't track that at all. And I don't know if it's because he can change the rules because he is now the genie, but all he does is just, he gets to name what he wants from people, and it can change. So he goes to the sheikh guy in Egypt, and he was like, I want your oil. And the guy's like, I don't have any oil. He's like, all right, I'll take all your security people instead. Like, he can just switch it on the fly.
Yeah,
so,
that didn't make sense, because I thought he had to use a wish. Because he was then going to people and getting them to use their wish for him.
Yeah, and then he just gets to list like a grocery list of what he wants. Like, there's a televangelist, which the movie also downplays this because don't piss people off. But the televangelist apparently has been caught with in a sex tape scandal, and so he's like, okay, the sex tape's gone, and I'll take your congregation, you know, and your money, and I'll take your TV time slot too. Like, he could just name a bunch of things. So I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. The thing I liked about the Kristen Wiig's thing was that like you saw how what she got made her change, whereas like with Wonder Woman, it was like the negative side was like unconnected to what she wished for. You know, it wasn't really a monkey's paw. I mean, it was, but it should have been something like Steve Trevor comes back, but they're like, you know, I don't know, there should be a twist on that.
I think if there is a twist, it's baked into the movie, but the movie can't acknowledge it, or it's really weird. And that is the fact that instead of just coming back to life, Steve Trevor comes back in like a quantum leap way where his mind is inside the body of, I don't know if you ever watched the old Wonder Woman show, but they cast a guy that looks a lot like Lyle Waggoner, the guy that played
I've
Steve Trevor in the old show.
Well, I have,
so I don't know if that
remember.
was just an Easter egg or what, but yeah. So he comes back in this body, and that's perfect, because if Wonder Woman actually, thinks about the fact that they are using somebody else's body without his consent, then she literally has Steve and he can run around an adventure with her. I suppose it's still endangering the guy's life, but she can't really consummate this romance that she has longed for so long because it's not right.
You're right.
It's there.
That could be a thing.
It's almost like it's from another draft and another writer came in and sort of screwed it up.
Well, because then they probably also had to figure out, I don't know. They didn't have to do this, but I feel like they're also trying to figure out, like, how do we make her vulnerable?
Yeah.
But then I don't know why they really needed to, because she never really was too terribly vulnerable.
No, she was never all that disadvantaged. Yeah. And if she fought somebody who had, like, the equivalent powers that she had, then that would be a challenge in itself. So yeah, it's confusing, and I think it does feel you feel the weight of like several drafts where things aren't really connecting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that does feel like something they probably came up with. Like, that's a good monkey's paw, and then they just didn't follow through with it, or they changed it.
I also like the fact that the first wish that gets made is really low stakes. And so maybe the consequences are low stakes too. But a guy's like, there's this guy who comes out and he's an interesting figure. Maybe he's an actor, a character actor, but it feels like just a guy that they got on the set or something. But he puts his hand on the crystal because he hears them talking about it. And he goes, man, I wish I had a coffee. And then a guy walks in and goes, hey, I got an extra coffee. Anybody want one? And he's like, oh, I got my wish. But because it's a monkey's paw situation, he turns around and they ADR'd a line in where he's like, oh, hot, hot. So he burned his tongue on the coffee that he wished for that he didn't deserve.
Wow. I didn't catch that part, actually.
It's the math. It checks out, but it's stupid. It's stupid math.
He should have gone, decaf.
Yeah, right. Oh, man, this is a soy latte.
I liked all the stupid wish stuff. Like, I liked how stupid it was when he would go to everyone and be like, don't you wish this? And it was so funny. And they make the little wind, and it reminded me of in the Naked Time or whatever, where they have to make that sound effect to let
the
you know.
maraca sound. Yes.
Yeah. It's like a lot of this I was like, oh, this does kind of feel like an old like Star Trek or like Twilight Zone movie because of little things like that. And it's kind of goofy, and like you would expect to see it on like a goofy TV show. And so I kind of love that.
Somebody's put fart sounds over those already, right?
Oh, I'm
like every time somebody makes a wish, it's a burp,
little wind, a little gust.
Yeah, and then at the end, when now Max Lord just has wind powers, I guess it's just like a huge. Somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
So we've got this weird situation that I think people have made a lot of hay out of, and I think it's important to point out things that don't. Violate, where characters violate consent or don't consider consent. That is important. But it's become a rallying cry, I think, from like both sides of the kind of ideological divide. I started doing a thing because, almost every article and think piece that comes out about Wonder Woman is about its negative aspects, and many of them center around issues, of femininity or issues of, consent. Why does Cheetah have to be punished for wanting to be, hotter or whatever? And I started taking note because I thought, I wonder how many of these are going to be written by men instead of women. And I think it came out after I stopped counting that it was probably about 60-40 of men writing articles about like, why are they using this man like a sex slave versus, women? But most of the articles were coming from traditionally feminist sites like Jezebel or Mary Sue. I think Mary Sue did 3 articles a week on how much Wonder Woman sucked. But it gets deeper. But most of those articles were written by male contributors, of which I didn't know that Mary Sue had any. So why are the woke men rolling out to pick on Wonder Woman 1984? I mean, here we are, but.
I don't know. I mean,
if the shoe fits,
I guess different people have different takes. I don't know. I mean, it was weird, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird, but it was also weird to me in a way, like, because the movie, it doesn't do anything with it. You know what I mean? Like we just talked about. So, like, I don't know why they had to do it that way. So,
yeah, and leaving that out, and it doesn't. I guess the movie can accept its own reality of they don't care that he's inside this guy's body, but I think it's telling that they don't, since that is Wonder Woman's kind of main conflict, they don't deal with it much. Almost the entire second act goes by before she gets beat up by Cheetah in the White House, and then at the end of, as Cheetah's parting speech is basically like, "I'm just doing what you're doing it too," you know. And then Diana and Steve retreat to her apartment, and Steve basically makes an entreaty to her about how, like, I don't think we can do this. Like, I have to go back, not because I'm in somebody's body, but because I'm holding you back. And then like the next scene, they're on the street, and he leaves. Like, they put it to bed, and it's all like in the last part of the second act. Which, by the way, what are you gonna do? He is physically there. You can't have him like disappear or dissolve or something. But he literally just, they say goodbye, and the camera pulls away. Wonder Woman's running towards the camera, and he just leans behind a pillar, and then there's a VO that's like, "I love you, Diana, I miss you," and that's how Chris Pine leaves the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so anticlimactic.
It was very anticlimactic. It was
It's
very
just
confusing.
strange.
Where I was like,
strange choice.
I was like, did they add the line in to like maybe it was her just walking away?
I think there's a lot of extra little lines to storytell, but
yeah, like, it's not emotional enough. Like, put that in.
I love. Let's talk about Pedro Pascal. I love Pedro Pascal. I like a lot of the projects that he's involved in. I think he's a good actor. He's working way too hard in this. He is. I saw in an interview that he was trying to channel Nick Cage, he said, because he was trying to like make this big and make this kind of over the top. And I think he accomplishes that. But even with that, I think that he's working way too hard in the film. I don't understand his plan, because we know that through study, he has somehow learned of the existence of this stone. He wants it. And then apparently his plan is to donate money to the Smithsonian so that they will throw him a gala so that he can then, and I guess maybe it's a freebie that Kristen Wiig is attracted to him, but he can seduce Kristen Wiig, go to her office, and then either steal or borrow the crystal. But there's a couple problems here because number one, he's broke. He can't donate any money to the museum. I guess maybe he could have wrote them a rubber check, but they're throwing a gala for a guy who has no money to give them. Also, the fact that Diana, after she sees that the stone is gone, starts going through the boxes and sees an invoice in the stone's box saying that it's from a New York sculpture company, and it's bought by Maxwell Lord, and it says paid. So he owns the stone. Like, he could just go to the Smithsonian and say, "Hey, I own that. You have my property. Give me the stone." At some point in the past, he paid for it. Also, why was it in the back room of like a black market dealing Crown Jewelers?
At a mall?
Yeah, in a mall. Yeah. How did it get there in the first place?
A lot of what you just said, I never even thought about, because it doesn't make sense, and I was just like kind of following along in a weird way. I was just like, okay, he's getting the stone. You know, like, I didn't think about these things because they were just kind of stupid.
If you're putting it together, they are stupid, but if you're putting it together, like, you just say that, you know, the burglars that like rob the store at the beginning of the film, they work for him, right? You have them work for him because he wanted to buy it, but he did write a rubber check to the black market guys or whatever. And so now they have it and he wants it. So he hires for less money some thugs to go get it. And then you could have Diana like work that contact back through and then realize that like, oh, Lord is sort of behind this. But no, instead it's just, he just happens to, you know, attract Kirsten Wiig, and then he can do that angle and just get his hands on it.
Yeah, well, I guess they wanted to have that because it's like, why would she want to protect him? You know, I guess.
Yeah, I still don't think it makes sense. I think she only protects him because she has developed this hatred for Diana.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the love of wishes.
How does she get into the White House? Because
I don't know how anyone gets anywhere, actually.
Lord literally uses his wish power to like get to the White House, and then there's a plant where there's this one character that's attracted to Diana, like all the men in the film, who works at the White House, and so she exploits him to get her and Steve on like a private tour that they stray from. But then Cheetah shows up, and it's like, I guess you just came in through the cat door or something. Like, I have no idea.
She used her cheetah skills, I guess.
She's just, there's a trail of dead Secret Service officers up to this room.
Well, I don't really get how anyone gets anywhere. Like, you know, they just, they have the Smithsonian jet, and I was like, okay, that's weird.
That's almost as improbable as her just spontaneously generating the power to be invisible. Which never comes up again. Like, I know she's got the Amazon armor on, but like at the end she flies to this island, you know, where the particle beam satellite projector is or whatever, and a bunch of automated guns start shooting at her. You know, they just blast bullets into the sky. If she had just made herself or her armor invisible, she could have just snuck past Cheetah and just got right to Maxwell Lord.
Well, it's really hard to do, apparently.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, well, it's funny. This movie. I don't know if it's Patty Jenkins or if it's the script, but there is comedy in this movie, but it doesn't know how to present it. And so there's a part where Diana discovers Steve is alive. They go to this dude's apartment, and Steve is trying to explain that, you know, I awoke in this bed on this futon, this bed with slats, and I spent a day trying to find you, and then I finally found you and approached you, and I had to walk over there because I couldn't get a car. I didn't know how to hail a taxi. And I tried to use this bike, but I couldn't make it work. And it's like a stationary exercise bike.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, but they don't show that at all. And I thought, oh, that's funny. Like I can't make this bike work. You know, he's stuck in one place. It's a future bike. But they didn't really do anything with that. There are little funny things where he's discovering things. Some of those cheap shots are like, people are like, subways were around for 50 years before that. The DC Metro, it would be impressive to a guy who that wasn't there when he used to live in DC, right. I suppose. But she talks about the coffee cup that she made invisible, and then it's a throwaway line, but she's like, I made it invisible, then I lost it. I thought, oh, that's kind of funny. If the coffee cup had coffee in it, that proposes a real problem, because she's able to make this jet invisible, and even the fire that comes out of the charged particles that come out of the jet that propel the jet, it's all invisible, and it's magic. That makes sense. But if she made a coffee cup invisible and there was coffee inside the coffee cup, that coffee spilled. She definitely knocked that coffee cup over accidentally at some point, which means she's got invisible coffee stains on her rug that will never be clean.
They'll never come out. Yeah. I do agree. Like, I guess he could be impressed by the train station. Though I was a little bit like, why is he that impressed by seeing a plane from really far away? He's seen planes.
Yeah. I thought that it was the problem that they have in creating this character named Steve, who's from the past and wakes up in our future. Yeah. And blame the comics for that, I guess. But like,
yeah, it's fine. The Martha is the mom's name of two people. That's
it happens. Yeah. They're stuck because they already tried to fix it by making him a World War I hero instead of World War II hero, which is fine. But, you know, they literally go to the Smithsonian and it's like, hey, let's go see the Steve Rogers exhibit. Like, what do you do? And I think one thing that really works, and I think it really is sold by Pine, who is also working way too hard in this movie, is that compared to Steve Trevor, Steve Rogers is a crabby asshole. Like, he comes to this great new world. He makes a little list. Oh, I got to try Thai food. But he's just like a depressed asshole, you know? And like Steve Trevor, like, he loves this world. He ate like 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts. He's like, this is amazing. These things are delicious. And he loves seeing like the space rockets and the fighter jets. And I love experiencing the world through his eyes, even if, he probably already knows what an escalator is.
Right, sure. I wonder if there's anything that would have like shocked him in a bad way, because that was also a problem with the time where it's like,
having his Lilu moment where he gets to war in the dictionary.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Or just anything. They're like, look how weren't the 80s a great time? And then you have Wonder Woman at the end being like, the world's already beautiful. And I'm like, I could think of like 3 non-beautiful things.
Steve Trevor's like, Diana, what is crack?
Right.
Does everybody have crack?
Yeah, what's crack? Yeah, just all that stuff that's so intrinsically tied to the 80s, you know?
Yeah, but we don't have a Reagan, we've got a POTUS, so...
He's just POTUS. That's the character.
He is, yeah, in the film. We should probably talk about some things that we actually did like.
Okay.
I liked we talked before about making the plane invisible. I don't really care about that. Like, one of the things that I like about Wonder Woman is that she's magic, so like things don't make sense necessarily. And there's a lot of like cool lasso tricks that she does. Like, she's Wonder Woman, she's chasing after like these soldiers, and she's not as fast as she used to be, and so her bracelet blocking isn't working. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys shoots a round at Steve that goes past her, and she sees that it's just gonna hit him right between the eyes. And so as she's running, she throws her lasso back and she lassos the bullet, and whips it out of the way, saving him. And I thought, yeah, that's a Wonder Woman move. That's what she should do.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, I would almost describe a lot of the action as like Looney Tunes, because it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like with some superhero movie stuff, like they give it like a weight and it feels like realistic in a way for what it is. Yeah. Whereas like this, there's none of that. It's like, she's bouncing off of stuff. She like kicks a car and it like spins and it's totally fine. Like, she doesn't damage the car or anything.
They're fine.
It's like everything has pads on it. And I kind of loved that. I loved how goofy it all was. She swings onto a missile and it pulls her, or, she swings on lightning and clouds. I loved all that stuff.
Yeah, and I liked, you could complain that it doesn't make any sense, but I like the fact that Steve knew that she could do that. Like, he's seen her in action in World War I, and he's like, he knows that she needs to get up there, to catch Lord. And so he's like, hey, Diana, I'm going to shoot this rocket. And she's like, yep, let's do it. And
there was no, actual, planning.
She just rides a rocket. Yeah, that was cool.
I like that because it just reminded me of, like, in the Fast and the Furious, they often do really coordinated things.
A single nod communicates like paragraphs of information.
While driving these cars at like 200 miles an hour. Like, like Vin Diesel can see that Michelle Rodriguez is about to go flying off this tank across the elevated interstate, so he crashes his car into the side of the road so he can fling himself in the air and catch her and land onto a car. And later she says, how'd you know there'd be a car there to catch you? And he says, I didn't.
Yeah,
that's right. That's what the action in this movie is too. Is like, how did you know you could shoot that missile and she would know to lasso it to save those kids? Well, they don't even ask because you don't need to.
I actually didn't hate the final fight between Barbara and Cheetah. Well, I liked parts of it. People complain that
really
it's
didn't
too
like it.
Yeah, people complain it's too dark, and I agree. I think the armor is completely superfluous. I guess the armor is literally there just to give Linda Carter a cameo, which I welcome, but not when it takes this much. The armor serves no function. It's just Cheetah gets to scratch at it, and then Wonder Woman takes it off, and then they fight. But like, once they're actually fighting, I hate Cheetah's look, but I like final form Cheetah because they're grabbing onto these power lines, and they're like, they're swinging around, and they're fighting like, when like the pirate they both grab ropes and then they're like sword fighting like on the ropes. It kind of felt like that. Like, it was very high energy, and I could see how a character that could move this fast and was this agile would be a danger to Diana. So I think that there's a good fight somewhere in there, but what we got and what we could see, it didn't really deliver.
I felt like not only was it like too dark, but like Cheetah like blended in and like it was just all blue.
Which is the idea. It is a camouflaged cat, but
but not in like oh, she's blending into nature way, but oh, she's blending into like the color grading of the movie.
Yeah, the contrast needed to be turned up.
Yeah, and I just felt like that was actually back when they did the fandom. That was like the first moment when they showed her in the trailer where I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this movie. Like, I got excited about all the other goofy... I was like, all right, I'll watch the goofy Snyder cut and all this stuff, but I don't know, that cheetah, it just really turned me off of this movie. And that was like the worst part of the movie for me, was that. And just in general, the setting, I feel like, wasn't good. Same thing with the desert road. Is like, the mall was fun, but I was like, let's get some like better settings for this big budget action movie.
Yeah,
they should have fought on the pyramids or something.
For a guy that likes Fast and the Furious movies, that's a kind of a glass house situation. You could criticizing endless roads.
That scene I just described from Fast and Furious 6 is actually the exact same problem, but they also in those movies have them like driving a car out of a skyscraper into another skyscraper. So that's my point. But like, if Zack Snyder did this movie, he would have them fight on the pyramids, and it would be really stupid, but it would rock.
This would be completely unacceptably tragic for a superhero movie, but like, shouldn't Maxwell Lord's kid die? Like, shouldn't he get like brain cancer or something?
I hated that. I hated he didn't need this whole sympathetic backstory at all.
Oh, I hated I didn't hate it. I just hated the fact that they saved it till the very end because I feel like the movie went out of its way to make him both despicable but also sympathetic, and they saved his entire kind of relatable backstory for like a little montage at the end. And if they'd given that to us throughout the film, then we would have felt more conflict over what he was doing. But going back to just the monkey's paw, which is why we're talking about this, there is no monkey's paw for him. He throws the world into chaos, a chaos which is not reversed by people renouncing their wishes, because he and his son meet in rubble. Like, those events did happen.
Yeah.
And yet he's like, his son accepts him back, and he's a changed man, and they go forward in their lives, and it's not, there's no monkey's paw.
They did sort of imply with the son that he could have made a good wish, because the son almost wished that he could be there for him or whatever, and he was like, no.
Yeah, that's confusing, because his son wishes for his father's greatness, and I don't know if that somehow unlocks a new power level for what Max Lord can do. It's not played out in the movie. And then also you've got the situation where, I don't know, Steve Rogers feels like an afterthought in the film, but Steve Rogers comes into contact with him. Shouldn't Steve be tempted to make a wish? Maybe he's the Sam and he doesn't like take the ring and he doesn't make a wish, but it's never even addressed. Like, what if Steve, is a new player brought into this scene who really has nothing to lose? Like, he gives his life up easily because he knows it's not his. So what if he could make some kind of wish that he could wish for it all to end, or he could wish some kind of change in the narrative that would change things, but it's never brought up because, I agree. Screenwriting is tough. I agree. Yeah. It's a thorny situation, but it doesn't mean you can't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I was overall, I feel like he could have just been a bad guy. Just he didn't, I don't know. I don't think I needed the sympathetic backstory. I was especially like, no, this wasn't the worst thing, but I remember when they had his little flashback scenes and they showed him starting his company, and it was like, yeah, he could have been like the good, nice, young oil guy. I was like, yeah, how things would be different if he was the good
what if
oil
he was
guy.
Yeah, what if he was a nice guy that was involved in high finance? Yeah, right. Yeah, we never would have got that anyway, I guess.
No.
Maybe they were trying to tap into I guess it was in the 80s, but it's really in the 90s where like the business father neglects his son, but at the end they, the Jingle All the Ways, the Liar Liars.
Hook.
Maybe they're trying to get a piece of that.
Yeah, totally. That totally, yeah, that's exactly that feeling. Maybe they just didn't really think about that.
I was thinking, and maybe this will be the last thing that we say because we've talked about this for a while, but there's a way to fix the Wonder Woman just rode that horse without his consent thing. What if that guy worked at the jewelry store and he had already made a wish? He saw this beautiful woman, in this skimpy costume, and he's like, man, I'd give anything I wish I could have sex with her. And the monkey's paw is that he doesn't remember it. And when he wakes up, his clothes are all over the place. His credit cards are maxed out, and he's wanted by Interpol.
I think that could be like that would, if that was a reality, that would be similarly kind of messed up, but I think people would accept it. You know what I mean? It would actually be great if he wished for that and she wished for Steve, and then they both, and then it's like, they're like sitting around and they're like, two birds with one stone here.
She meets him at the end, and they have this little conversation. He's like, man, I'm just glad to be alive. I made this weird wish on a stone because I saw a girl, and then I don't remember the last 3 days.
And, you look kind of familiar.
I don't know.
He's like holding his hand up like to make her little crown.
Yeah. If that substitution thing is affects all wishes, then maybe the wall in Egypt, that was the Berlin Wall. Now the Berlin Wall disappears because it's a different wall.
I really like your fix there. I think that would have...
We got to get that wall back to Berlin. All right, well, I think we might have made a monkey's paw deal in doing this film itself, but we will move on to the Trek side of this equation after a word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more BackTrekking.
Okay, Caliban, are you prepared to take your Sailor Noob graduation quiz?
Hana, I'm so prepared for this. I learned fluent Japanese.
Impressive.
Arigato gozaimasu.
First question. The hero of Sailor Moon is Usagi Tsukino. What does Usagi mean in Japanese?
Rabbit.
Correct.
Yes.
Next question. As Sailor Moon, Usagi and the Sailor Scouts live and go to school in what Tokyo neighborhood?
Easy. Azubu Juban.
That's right. One more correct answer and you'll no longer be a Sailor Noob. The human form of the Cardian Leshy is tasked by Ail and Ann to gather life energy. What Japanese historical period are Leshy's human forms clothes from?
What?
I'm sorry, the answer was the Heian period.
Bacana!
Better luck next time. But for all the answers, listen to Sailor Noob, where we discuss the food, fashion, and culture of Sailor Moon, wherever you get your podcasts.
Watashi wa hazukashi. Okay, we're back, and it's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. As a weekly sci-fi genre series, Star Trek, in its various forms, is no stranger to repurposing the myths and legends of earlier media, taking pains to recontextualize them for a future created as a commentary on our present. The result often delivers fairies who instead are aliens, or magic artifacts that are futuristic technology, and evil magic cast as science that we do not yet understand. And it's often true that the more basic the idea that a parable is trying to convey, the easier it becomes to adapt to any setting. And that remains true for the lesson behind The Monkey's Paw, a lesson learned, if somewhat indirectly, by the crew of Deep Space Nine in the DS9 episode Rivals.
Quark's greedy empire is threatened.
Welcome to Club Martis.
When a shrewd competitor sets up shop.
He can't do this. I have an exclusive contract.
And tries to put him out of business.
Martis is cutting into my profits.
Now, can he con the con man?
My benevolence is known far and wide.
Or has Quark met his match?
He'll be in profit by the end of the week.
On the next episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
I really like this episode.
And really?
Yeah, I do. And the reason I do is because it represents that very brief period where DS9 could have been anything. Like, it was just a anthology show set in Star Trek. You know, free from the trappings of the Federation and Starfleet, you could tell any kind of future story in this world that you wanted to. And yeah, some of them are Rumpelstiltskin is bothering Chief O'Brien, or whatever, and they aren't that great. And some of them are like a very basic idea, like the Monkey's Paw, set in a future kind of setting.
Actually, I should be shocked. My take on it would be like, I didn't think it was. I thought like aspects of it were not very good, but I kind of really enjoyed watching it anyway. Like in the way that I was saying, like I wished Wonder Woman could have been, where it was kind of goofy, but like it's just like. It's a good romp, It's a good goofy time,
and it's set, kind of in the periphery of DS9 from the Federation or Starfleet angle or story. And sometimes, sometimes they'll have episodes where Quark gets caught up in a con, or he's trying to con somebody or something, and those are okay. Sometimes they get not confusing, but it just goes a few more steps than I really care about. Like,
Okay.
I get the joke of like Jake and Nog starting a company, and they have self-sealing stem bolts, and they're going on like this odyssey where they're gonna try to trade them for a baseball card, and then Wei Yun gets involved, and it's like it's a couple steps past where I want to go with it. But this is very simple because we set up in the beginning that there's this guy on the station, Marcus Mazer, a con man, and he's talking to this old lady, and then he gets this game, and then he starts doing this thing himself, and then it all comes out at the end that like the old lady in the beginning was conning him, and here at the end of his adventure, his escapade, he's lost everything. He learns that like he was the one being played, in the beginning, and I think that's neat.
Yeah, it's kind of satisfying to watch him. He's kind of the Maxwell Lord of this reality.
He is kind of, yeah. And I think Maxwell Lord would be a good El-Aurian. Like, this is where we really this is where they really introduce the idea of El-Aurians. They had already been in the writer's Bible that Guinan, when she appeared, would be from a race of listeners and the El-Aurians.
Okay.
But this is the first on-screen mention of El-Aurians, and this aired before Star Trek Generations, when we meet Dr. Soren, of course, and the rest of the El-Aurians who have escaped the Borg attacking their planet.
Oh, I actually did not know that. I did not know that he was the same deal. I knew, I knew in Generations that was. I didn't know this guy was. I forgot the name.
The race of listeners.
Okay. Yeah, he almost had kind of a... Yeah, it's kind of like Maxwell Lord. It kind of made me... I guess he's not, like, totally manipulating people, but I kind of thought of, like, Kilgrave or whatever, where he's just kind of like...
Yeah.
Where he
just
can...
Yeah.
He's not, like, just telling people what to do, but he is kind of just, like, with his power, it feels like he's, like, manipulating people a little bit, And
it's also complete bullshit, just like Maxwell Lord. Like, Maxwell Lord is, life is good, but it can be better. But this guy, like, when he's hearing this this woman's story, which we find out later is, it's all con, but, like, he says to her, because she's talking about the death of her husband, and he's like, yes, when hearts are in sympathy, time collapses. What? What are you talking about? But he delivers it in this way that, it's just like, that makes sense. Delivered, of course, by actor Chris Sarandon, who most people probably know as Prince Humperdinck from The Princess Bride, or as Jerry from Fright Night. But this guy's been around. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't think of where I knew him from, but okay.
His very first movie was Dog Day Afternoon. He played Leon, the partner of Al Pacino's character. Yeah. And I never figured that out before. And when you look at it now, it's like, oh no, clearly it's the same person. But in that film, he's in he's in his robe, and Chris Sarandon talked about how in playing a transsexual character, or a character that wanted to have a sex reassignment, he plucked his eyebrows and he tried to get into that community and sort of get a feel of that character. And I think the way that he carries himself is so different than a Prince Humperdinck that I never made the connection that it was the same guy.
Yeah, no, I would not have ever gotten that unless you told me. So
he's also the voice of Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas and all related media. So Kingdom Hearts.
Oh my goodness.
That's
actually, that quote you just pulled from him sounded like something you would hear in Kingdom Hearts.
It does, yeah.
It's like, that sounds...
Sora, when hearts are in sympathy, time collapses. Yeah.
No, Sora, Goofy, Donald.
You gotta stretch it out more. Yeah, so this guy, we don't know how he got to the station, but he's got moves and he's got plans, and he's got to get himself back on top again. And the way he's going to do it is he gets a 20 questions game off of a guy sharing the cell with him.
That was okay. So I enjoyed this whole aspect, but that was the thing that was like, this was what made it a hard sell for me as like something that I could like take seriously. Was that this game sucks. Like, I understand how the game and the game is, like, appealing to people, where they're putting the the discs in the thing and it makes them
Sure.
like come or whatever. But
Sure.
this was they press a button and then it just lights up, good or bad, and they don't
Yeah.
know it's doing anything. I don't think.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
the show doesn't imply that they're getting any feeling from it.
It's a coin flip with extra steps.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't get why anyone would be that interested in it more than like what Quark is doing. I don't think they get that across well, that like why anyone would find it appealing, why Quark would find it that appealing. You know, I don't know.
Right. And whatever its mechanism is, it is somehow influencing probability. So you have to wonder as the show goes on, how much of what's going on is like characters' actual feelings or reactions and what might be it influencing them. I'm not sure that it applies the whole way, but even something like Chief O'Brien getting so worked up over Bashir being, because this is early in the show and he still thinks that Bashir is kind of a pipsqueak at this point, but would he really get that into the fact that like he's better at racquetball than him? Which, by the way, I always made the mistake. I thought that this was spring ball that they were playing because they mentioned spring ball later in the series. And it's so, like, if it's racquetball, it's just a rectangle, right? But this is like a weird future court. But no, this is just racquetball in the 24th century.
It's not spring ball?
No.
I don't know the difference.
Yeah, they just say one time that it's racquetball. But it is the Bashir talks about like the old rules and the new rules.
It was like a retcon, maybe.
Yeah, maybe later on they came up with the idea of spring ball, and so they wanted it to be that. But
is it the same rules you think then as racquetball?
I am a little fuzzy on the rules of racquetball, but
okay, yeah, I couldn't tell you. Like, I couldn't tell if I could tell what was happening because I don't know the rules of racquetball, or if this was like a, Alita Battle Angel, like, rollerball or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Where
yeah.
I don't understand the rules at all, but...
Which is like, sometimes it's basketball with murder, and sometimes it's NASCAR with a ball that doesn't matter at all. Yeah, yeah.
I like both of those things, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but it certainly occupies O'Brien and Bashir throughout the episode.
I loved it. Yeah, that was what was like really getting me invested, was particularly O'Brien, Colomini. Like I really like him in this episode.
Yeah, I do too. I also I think this is a great episode for Keiko for as little as she's in it, but I like the fact that she, at first it's like, what are you doing? And then later on she's like, this is important to him. I'm going to make a big deal out of this. He's going to like it.
She has a thing like in the first Fast and Furious movie where the one girl makes Ja Rule touch her breast and goes, whether you win or lose, you get this. That's what she does.
That's her?
It's the same. She has the same.
It's not Rosalind Chow.
No, it's not her. It's a different. Okay. It's a different woman. Oh my god!
I'm like, whoa.
But she has the exact same thing later, where she's like, "We're gonna do it later," basically.
No matter how bad you humiliate yourself in this quarter-mile race, which you will, you still get to have sex with me.
Yeah, she gave him the little thing with the perfume on it to like get him fired up. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, I guess. I love how Bashir is just like, the show is committed to him, but it's committed to him being annoying and clueless. Like later on, he'll get involved with Section 31 and he'll be, more serious and sober about what he does. But he is just a goofball.
Yeah,
and
he was really good in this, I thought.
I love that. I don't know if he's Alexander Siddig yet. He might be Siddig Al-Fadil, but like I love the fact that he's just eating that up and doing all the goofy poses. And,
yeah, I feel like he's being goofy. Like a lot of people are goofy in Star Trek, but I feel like he had a very unique goofiness that I feel like I hadn't seen before. If I was just talking about like what had come before this,
Yeah, DS9 in these early seasons feels kind of like Mayberry a little bit, in that it's a town, and there definitely is like an Andy and I guess a Barney, but like there is the cop side of it, there's the procedural side, but then there are just like weird characters that populate it and they sort of bounce off of each other. And that's all well and good. And then like somebody like Odo or Cisco walks in and goes, oh, this is kind of weird. What's going on over here?
Yeah.
And has to set things right at the end. But yeah, people just get into scrapes and don't know how to get out of them.
I actually liked how simplistic solving the issue was this time around.
Yeah, they just shoot everything.
They're just like, shoot it. They don't have to like get their lasso around anyone or
Yeah. The thing about the we don't really know how the Magic 8-Ball thing works, but it apparently, maybe like the Sauron's ring, gloms onto someone and sort of rides them as far as it can. And that's not necessarily the fault of the person who's using it. Like, we don't know what Wrinkle-Face old guy did to end up in that jail cell where he breathes his last. But what where the monkey's paw sort of grabs onto the story is the way that what the character decides to do once their luck changes. And there are decisions that they are given where they make the wrong decision, or they make an unjust decision, and that's kind of what dooms them. What's funny is that I think Mazer really rides that line for a while, because later on the woman comes back to him in trouble, and he doesn't know that she's a con woman. She's there because she knows he has money now, but she asks him, for the money for the survey, and he's like, I'm going to do this. I feel like I made a connection before. I know I'm a con man, but she seems like she really needs this money. There seems like there's a good payoff, and there's no reason that he should do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't necessarily.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't necessarily need her, except for the fact that he is sort of losing money now that the machines are paying out. But other than that, there are points where he definitely like does things.
Well,
he doesn't have to approach the Bajoran widow, who had a shop or whatever. He's kind of taking advantage of her and their arrangement, and so
I guess he did expect like a big return from his investment. So
yeah, for the mining thing for sure. But he had no real guarantee that she could deliver the money that she was asking for, and ultimately she can't. She was just going to walk off with the cash.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I liked. I kind of liked how kind of nebulous, like, when you get punished was, like, the guy in the prison. I loved his despair.
Yeah,
he was really good. Like, a really interesting, like, Star Trek. Like, what do we do for this alien? Like, I don't know. He's just like kind of a weird old guy. Like,
yeah. I tried to look up that guy because even under that makeup, he seemed familiar.
Yeah.
And he is a character actor, but I couldn't peg anything real specific that you or anybody else would really know him from. But yeah, I mean, Trek is good at casting very recognizable, good character actors. I wonder if, so first of all, this isn't how probability works really at all, but if you could say that like up neutrino spin is good luck and down is bad luck, and neutrinos have they do have a spin, I guess, but like if you just say that up is good and down is bad, then I wonder if like, when you play the game, then that creates a moment where whatever's happening could have a good or bad outcome. And maybe like the old guy, he plays it one last time and his heart is like, should I have a coronary or not have a coronary? Then he loses the game, and so he has a coronary. Wow. I guess maybe that's how the decisions work. I don't know how it works.
What I liked about it, and it's what made the episode like good and bad, was that the science of it is kind of like schlocky or whatever. Like like sometimes the science, like the weird science of Star Trek, the like stuff they make up is like, wow, like it kind of blows your mind. But in this, it's like as they're all discovering it, like, oh, I fell down and I had to go to the doctor, and everyone fell down, and they're like going through. They're like, could these things be connected? And they're like whole procedural. It's just like, I'm just like, oh my God.
He's kind of sucking the luck out of everybody else.
Yeah, I guess so. No, but it's like then they get it back because she's like, oh, I went down and I was lucky because I didn't have any actual injury, but other people now are there. It was like, it was flip-flopping, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I like the fact that because it's more of a side story and it's O'Brien, Quark, Bashir, and Mazer story, all the Starfleet people are just relegated to ops scenes.
Yeah.
And so if you cut their scenes out, it's like the worst office comedy of the future ever.
That's
Dax
exactly
going
what
like,
I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm trying to find this computer program. Oh, I found the computer program. Oh no, I lost the computer program. What's up with this computer? Get the IT guy.
And it's like so goofy. It's like could these random accidents correlate with your computer program?
Right. Yeah.
Like it's almost parody. And so it's like I was like, this kind of sucks, but I also like kind of loved it.
I saw a black cat before, and now my report's gone. Yeah.
All the mirrors in my quarters are shattered.
Yeah. There's some great scenes, as always, with Armin Chamberlain as Quark in this. I like how when you get Quark, fencing with the other con man, and Quark's style is to be really ingratiating, but then kind of backstab you. And Mazur's style is like just a handsome poker face. Like he just sort of slow plays all of the sort of situations he finds himself in. And so he kind of like breaks Quark because Quark's like, well, I'll take it. I'll take it off your hands. A little too eager, and so clearly Mazur has the upper hand. I like later when Quark is down on his luck because Club Mazur is doing well, and O'Brien comes in and he's mad because he's losing the match, and Quark's like, "I'm a good bartender. I can listen," and then O'Brien starts telling him, but of course Quark, starts hatching his plan, and then O'Brien runs out mad again.
He does not care. Yeah, there's a lot of good like comedy in this episode for sure.
Yeah.
Going along with what you said about how like this was at a time where Deep Space Nine could have been anything. Like I always just feel like what I appreciated about Deep Space Nine was that, and you said sometimes it commits too much. But I feel like it like really commits to like whatever bit it's trying to do in an episode,
Yeah.
Like there is like a bit of a sci-fi spin to this, obviously, but it mostly is just like, what if we do this goofy magic monkey's paw episode? And so I love that. I love when they're like, we're gonna do this thing, like they don't back away from it usually.
I think that one of the things that is really great about the DS9 cast and opens itself up for a lot of episodes like this is that every actor on the show, except maybe like Terry Farrell and Avery Brooks, who are good actors, but I don't think they have this quality, is that they can go both ways. They can be very serious, but they also can be very comic, and they have that range.
Okay, yeah.
So one episode people are fighting for their lives against Jem'Hadar and straining to win. And another episode, it's like, do, like it's a totally goofy thing. And on TNG, I don't think you have that a lot.
No,
you have somebody like Brett Spiner who is just aching to do comedy, but has to be Data. Like Troy and Riker, I think they can both be like cute, like in a comedic way, but they don't have those huge chops like I guess like a Barkley or something like that.
Right.
And on DS9, you can switch gears episode by episode to do a funny thing or do a serious thing, and it works.
And like with those characters you said don't have that quality, I feel like you were talking about, they in this episode they have like this boring, stupid office drama thing going on, but it's very funny because of that. Like I can totally, that music you made, I could totally imagine that playing under all of this, like do 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 do, like as they figure out all this stuff. It's just so like, it's like it feels like they're running through the motions, but in like a very like, it's just such a goofy situation that
yeah
it works.
I know that Bajor is not part of the Federation yet, but I hope that their economy works in such a way that we don't have to do constant charity drives for orphans. Maybe Quark is twisting the knife and talking about the down payment on the blankets, but like I hope they still get some money even though the match gets called off.
It does make you, it makes you wonder about the economics of this some more, but
maybe they have a non-probability fucked match later to get the money for the orphans. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they could take care of it. Sure, O'Brien and Bashir could take care of it.
It's funny that O'Brien is he's such an active guy. We always hear about his kayaking trips. They're cost prohibitive to shoot, but I like the fact that he's always, he's rock climbing or he's doing darts or he's out playing spring ball or racquetball.
He's got a lot of facets to him, yeah. He's got a spider. He's got a lot going for him.
He doesn't like kelp pods, though. He doesn't like that.
I was curious in this. They kind of like O'Brien and Bashir's characters, like kind of are like relatable to like people contemporarily, right?
Yeah.
But they almost have like this classic like class differentiator where like O'Brien feels like the working class guy, and Bashir is like this upper class, like more like whatever kind of guy. But like on Earth, like I wonder what it made me think of, like there's not really like a class structure like that, is there? Like I don't know.
Well, I think there probably is, whether we admit it or not.
At this point in the future, like it would be different, presumably, with the way Star Trek presents it.
I think the terrain would be smoother, but I think that it would still be there.
Yes,
nominally it would. And as we've seen here on Earth right now, when those distinctions become more fine and subtle, they become sometimes more intractable because we don't want to admit that they're really there. It's one thing when you've got a civil rights situation where people are being like gassed, but it's another thing where people are just sort of like subtly, shunned or kept out of society, and they're like, "What? There's no problem. Everybody's got equality." So yeah, that could you're right. That could definitely be a problem.
I feel like in a story like this, like you sometimes have that. It made me think of like in Breakin', when there's like the Special K, and she's like from the upper class, and then you've just got Turbo and Ozone, and they're like the break dancers.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was put in the mind of Fame. I thought that except for the magic probability science fiction thing, you could totally have a situation where somebody from Fame, from the arts high school, runs into, it's just like the baseball one, runs into somebody from the uptown
Zachary
school,
Taylor,
and they're like, "I'm going to take you out, with the badminton," or something like that. And it's like, okay, everybody's got to sing a song about badminton. We're going to get behind him. It's all for the orphans.
So that's exactly the same feeling you got from this. I was expecting almost there to be like the story element of like O'Brien being like, "I don't know all your fancy rules that you learned in your in your fancy British school or whatever," but instead it's just about how he's old, So that's what really got me thinking, like, well, could they even go that way? Because they probably, I feel like they still want to present like a more equal future where they all went to the academy and they all, they all lift their pinky when they drink tea, no matter where they come from,
Yeah, they kind of missed that because they don't even really bring that up. Julian talks about winning like the Academy Medical School's finals or whatever. And of course, O'Brien, just walked up to a window and said, "I want to join Starfleet." Like, so there is a division there as well.
Yeah, they could. I feel like they could play into that. I mean, that's what makes their friendship really great to me.
Oh yeah,
but
it's a whole bromance as the show goes on. Yeah, but it's early days still. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I'm going to compare every episode to Fame now. That's a new podcast. It's just how Fame and Star Trek go together.
I'm going to find ways to get Breakin' in there.
Well, something that makes Trek is the technology that we see in the future, and it sometimes facilitates what the characters are doing, but just as often it's the actual complication that they're dealing with. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies, and we add what we get to the non-Trek media, we subtract it from the Trek episode, and we see how each would be different. We call it our technological exchange. And the technology list that we have has 10 items. Here they are. They're phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drive, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids. And I will roll on my technology, which is a random number selecting device. The number that I got was 5. I kind of thought we were going to get this. Warp drive is the answer.
Okay.
Warp drive. So I think this is going to be a complication.
It's hard for
here.
Deep Space Nine.
Well, yeah, because it all takes place on the station. But if warp drive existed in the world of Wonder Woman 2020, Wonder Woman 1984, how would it be different? Steve would have a lot more to get excited about.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to use the jet to get to Cairo, or maybe it'd be a warp jet.
Maybe it'd be Planet Cairo.
So just the same 1984 in space. Okay.
Yeah, like, the world, especially America, but America and the USR have space empires now because of warp drive. And so they'd be going in a lot of different ways, taking warp capable craft to other locations.
Just be like one of those space comics. Be like Guardians of the Galaxy or something.
I suppose.
I wonder,
has anyone ever done that? There's been plenty of like space stories written and portrayed in or produced in the 80s, but I want to see like a world where it's just like the 80s, but it's all space. It's just like
that's actually kind of cool. Yeah,
leg warmers and aerobics, on another planet.
I guess it could be cool if it was like alternate history, like almost everything is still the same, but yet somehow we're also like swapping planets, but you still have like Reagan and like the Cold War.
Yeah, sure. And Steve even comes from World War One, which would be like, I guess, Galaxy War One, where they had warp drive, but it was like slower and worse. He was a space pilot.
So when was warp drive invented?
Yeah, in our history, at some point.
Back in the day,
the Wright brothers.
Okay.
The Wright brothers created the first. Yeah, at Kitty Hawk Nebula, they created the first warp drive.
I was thinking, like, did Da Vinci come up with some like really wonky?
It's always Da Vinci.
Some like goofy, wonky warp drive that really didn't work.
It's just a design, really, just a sketch. You Italian bastard! You did it again. So that would definitely eliminate, not that the movie cares at all. I love when they come back from Egypt and they meet Barbara and she's like, that was fast. And it's meant to imply, I don't know what. There's actually, I should have mentioned this before, but it's perfect now. There's a part where they're in Egypt, they're finalizing, because she calls Barbara from Egypt. She says, look into this thing. And she's like, I found a guy. He says he's a Mayan, but he's just pretending he's stealing Mayan valor. I didn't know what that was about. And Wonder Woman hangs up, and then we switch to like a quick sweeping shot where we see like a road in a grove, and we hear what sounds like an engine or perhaps like, the discharging of super fast superpowers. And there's a wind that blows, and then we get to the Mayan guy's house, and she goes, oh, you guys were here fast. And I'm like, did somebody... Did the cheetah run there, or did Wonder Woman run there, or was that her invisible plane flying low?
It's very weird. I think too, like when Wonder Woman's like, "We're gonna meet up with you," she has a weird line of like, "I'll see you in a minute" or something. Like,
yeah, right, yeah. What was that supposed to be?
I don't know.
Warp drive. It was warp drive.
So maybe it's been there all along. Yeah,
they wouldn't have to worry about how to get around at all.
Yeah, I wonder if Steve flew in World War I warp drive, would it also be a thing where he can also pilot the same, like, or a totally different machine?
The principle, it would be more efficient, but the principles would be similar, and it would make more sense than going from a biplane to a jet engine.
Where he's like flipping things, like I've seen people do in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Like trying to get the plane to take off, but usually the outcome is the plane catches on fire. He's just going like, gas. There's like 4,000 switches on here.
I guess, yeah. Like there's a shot specifically where he throttles up in the jet, and I'm like, that wasn't even a thing. You would just have a guy grab the propeller at the front of your plane and go zzz, and then spin the thing in an old World War I plane. I don't think they had a throttle like that. So how does he know how to throttle up? He's a quick study. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Sorry.
And he would be with the warp drive as well.
Yeah.
If we took warp drive away from the DS9 episode, what then would change?
Well, of course.
And I think we have to assume
the whole
that,
reality.
Yeah. Nobody would be there, but we'll assume that they can get there in other ways. It's just not the conventional warp drive.
Sure. Yeah, they just don't really leave this episode. There's just the little game and the little casino he makes.
Perhaps his the attendance of his casino would be a lot less because people can't come from light years around to experience.
He'd have to make less luck balls or whatever they are.
Well, maybe he would turn to the internet, which we never see in 90s Star Trek. And much like Maxwell Lord, who uses bullshit particle beam technology to contact everybody, he would make his game into an internet app. And then now all across the galaxy, people are playing the coin flip game, and it's changing their realities as well. Oh my God.
That does remind me of just how easy it is in this universe to replicate something that can completely destroy everything. Like he's just like, I told the replicator to make these devices that are like endangering us.
Yeah.
Like, do they not have any safety protocol of that? Like, could you just be like, make me a gun or whatever, you know?
I imagine that guns would be restricted, but maybe it's just that
it couldn't figure out what it's doing.
Yeah, it doesn't know that it has that effect, and it goes, okay, this part, that part. You know, we never get into where the game comes from, and the show doesn't talk about it, but I'd assume that it probably came from the Gamma Quadrant, right? Like in early DS9, yeah, weird things come through the wormhole, and we don't really know what they do all the time. So maybe it would be something like that, yeah.
I feel like there should be, like, almost like how you have to get a background check in some places to get a gun.
Or at least a computer. I want a knife. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, like
the steak.
If you want,
fine, okay.
If you want to replicate something that's never been replicated before, you should have to go to the commander and get approval. Like, they should have to study it, you know.
The Office of Replication.
Yeah, there should be more bureaucracy here, I think.
Yeah, oh, you want bureaucracy? Oh, interesting. Typical liberal, yeah. Yeah, it is a little scary that there's a box that can literally make a bomb or something like that.
Just
Computer, give me a nuke. 10 megaton.
I feel like that happens so much on accident. Like, sometimes it's like when they're doing important stuff, like, there's the Rashomon episode where they're like, the experiment is accidentally doing stuff or whatever. But in this, it's like the guy got, like a 20 questions game. And it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing with the game and the game. They're just like, yeah, we replicated a bunch of these. It's like, no one looked at what this is.
And yeah, the computer's like, this makes you come and it controls your mind. Okay, how many do you want? Yeah. I wish I could replicate Walden books. I saw Walden books in the movie, and I was like, "Oh, Walden books! Oh. I miss Walden books."
So you got bit by the '80s bug too.
A
little bit, yeah.
Not much though. I like how she doesn't. We're back to Wonder Woman. I like how she's stopping all these crimes, and a bunch of girls like shoplift. That's fine. I know that there was somebody in grave bodily danger, but maybe she could stop and be like,
"No, that's fine.
Girls, you shouldn't. You can't take the short path to sunglasses."
I was actually expecting that, and I was like, gonna be annoyed by it, but I'm like, yeah, just let the girls shoplift. It's fine.
It doesn't hurt anybody.
They're just kids, yeah.
Right. Well, anyway. Yeah, Mazer would ruin the entire Federation with his little app.
Yeah, easily.
Well, should we tell people what's coming up on the next episode of BackTrekking?
Yes.
What's next?
Okay, we have a celebration coming up.
It's a celebration.
I guess for President's Day or for Lincoln's birthday. Yeah. Something like that. We got a Lincoln double feature. We're, of course, talking about the classic TOS episode, The Savage Curtain. a collection of historical figures. And we're comparing it to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes. Another party on, dudes.
Real Lincoln deep dive.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that. And we will see you then. And that's it for this week's BackTrekking. And thanks for listening. And if you like the show, tell a friend, follow us at BackTrekking on Twitter, and tell us too what you think that we should look at in future episodes. And as always, like and subscribe wherever you find us. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Gooey, tell the people where they can find you online.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at GooeyFame.
And I'm at KA1IBAN on Twitter. And also you can find all the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. And that's it for us. We'll see you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.